Just how reliable are the eyewitness accounts of individuals claiming to have seen Nicola Bulley on the morning of her disappearance? That is what I covered in yesterday's video. But just this morning I've received some further information which appears to show yet another eyewitness who has seemingly vanished from the official timeline. When this case started, when it hit mainstream media, it was widely reported early on that Nicola was last seen on the towpath at around 9:10 to 9:15 am. This later appeared in newspaper articles as two individuals walking their dog who came across Nicola, and she was laughing and joking as they passed each other. This was told by an anonymous source, but by all accounts it was a friend of Nicola Bulley. This then changes around a week into the investigation. The sighting on the towpath vanishes. We now have the last known sighting of Nicola Bulley at 9:10 in the upper field. We are told in countless press conferences that this is an individual who knows Nicola. There can be no confusion here as to who was in the field that day. It was Nicola Bulley. Don't ask any questions. We know that she was in the field, and this has been clarified by someone who knows Nicola. My problem with that, as stated in yesterday's video, is that if this individual really did know Nicola, then why did it take him almost a week to come forward and say that he saw her? Because in the first 2 days of this investigation, yes, it was a local missing person case. They did have a gathering at the local village hall to talk about and discuss Nicola's disappearance. But after the weekend, this became mainstream, national and international news. Now this morning I caught up with a video from another YouTube channel which goes by the name of Eddie's Vinyl Break, I believe it's called. I'll also put a link to his channel in the video description box below. But in his video, he phrased it a lot better than I did in the video that I released yesterday. He was talking about this man walking the dog. He's seen a lady with blonde hair walking a dog, and he may have assumed that he had seen Nicola Bulley. There doesn't have to be this interpersonal, personal relationship between two individuals as it's put forward in the press conferences, such as, this is an individual who knew Nicola. It's most likely someone who was walking their dog, who saw a female, possibly with blonde hair, walking their dog on the field and viewed them from a distance. That is what I believe happened. I can't say that for certain, but I certainly believe that that is more likely than someone who actually knew Nicola. Why do I say that? Because, as I say, this person didn't come forward to the police with any information until around about a week after Nicola went missing. So if this man in his 70s with the white fluffy dog who claims to have seen Nicola on the upper field at around 9:10, if he knew Nicola, why did it take him around about a week or so to come forward with that information? Ask yourself that question. Was he just stuck in his house for the best part of 7 days? I don't believe so. Would it not have been the talk of the town or the talk of the village? Yes, of course it was. Nicola's disappearance was widespread. Even after the first 2 days of her disappearance, this became mainstream news. Not just national, but international news. So I do have a bit of a concern regarding the validity of the eyewitness account coming from the upper field at 9:10. One of the reasons for that is, as I stated at the beginning, because this is not the actual timeline that was first reported.
Okay, so I'm here today to appeal for witnesses in the case of Nicola Bulley. This is a 45-year-old lady from the local area who sadly went missing last Friday morning at about 9:15 am. She was last seen walking her small brown dog on the towpath of the River Wyre.
Okay, so what happens next is that eyewitness account on the towpath at around 9:15, that eyewitness account completely vanishes. It disappears from the newspapers and it doesn't appear in any further police press updates. It's gone. Forget about it. It's finished. We then have the introduction of a new eyewitness on the 3rd of February. This individual sees Nicola on the lower field. Their dogs interact briefly and Nicola continues on with her walk, where she's then later spotted by a gentleman walking his dog at 9:10 am. This is the last eyewitness account of someone seeing Nicola Bulley on the morning of her disappearance. Now, what concerns me is this following piece of information that I'm going to put up in front of you now. you can see that the lower field witness has now vanished. The lower field witness doesn't even appear in the last press conference by Rebecca Smith. So we've gone from individuals who have seen Nicola that morning, interacted with Nicola, laughing and joking on the towpath, dogs interacting with her dog, to one eyewitness. We're down to one eyewitness, according to this piece of information, this statement released by Lancashire police themselves. I did find it strange that in that last press conference, as I say, with Rebecca Smith, she's going through a complete timeline of events concerning the disappearance of Nicola Bulley. She talks about her dropping the children off at school, walking along towards the Iron Bridge. And then we don't have any eyewitnesses on the lower field. That eyewitness is gone. The lower field witness is now gone. The one on the towpath has vanished. The one on the lower field is no longer relevant. It's completely just disappeared. It's disappeared from the timeline completely. Now, why is that? Are we seriously, and this is a genuine question here, are we really left with just one eyewitness? Are we relying here on the man walking his dog on the upper field, who viewed Nicola from a distance, who took around about a week to come forward with his account? Are we solely relying here on one eyewitness? Now, as I stated in yesterday's video, my biggest concern in this case is the lack of factual evidence. No CCTV of Nicola on her walk that morning, no Ring doorbell camera footage, no dash cam footage. To the best of our knowledge, no drivers have come forward to say that they saw Nicola walking towards the Iron Bridge. And what concerns me the most is the way that the complete opposite, in my opinion, is portrayed by the police. The police would have you believe that they've been very fortunate in this investigation because of the amount of CCTV that's available, that they've checked through the dash cam footage, and the eyewitnesses who actually know Nicola. They would have you believe that they have an overwhelming amount of information to suggest that Nicola entered at a certain point and didn't leave the Riverside area. But let me just clarify. I don't even need to clarify what the police have. Just take a listen to Rebecca Smith.
Secondly, as you come to the end, onto the Iron Bridge, you turn left. So right, you say
yes,
that's been covered off
yes,
by CCTV.
yes.
Are we saying that to the left is a blind spot, and if so, how far down? There's no CCTV there, I take it, that's been recovered.
Not on that main. I can't give you the specifics of the exact how many sites, but we were basically scoping off all the. As you turn left,
Yeah.
we're trawling all that area for any CCTV that we have got. But the main road, that area there, isn't covered, unfortunately. So from the Iron Bridge, to the school, if you will,
Yes.
there is nothing there. So from the Iron Bridge to the school, if you will,
Yes.
there is nothing there, which is why it's so important for the dash cam, because even though they're going to be tiny bite sizes of information, they're not going to be as good as being able to view CCTV. We need to be able to piece together as much of that portion of the road as we can.
And of those 700 cars, how many have been spoken to, or what percentage have been spoken to?
I can't give you exact figures on that, because obviously there will have been more today that have come in, but a substantial amount.
Are there any particular cars that we're looking for that you can appeal for?
No,
today?
no. They've all had individual letters to the cars that we know have gone past in the area, not that particular, but in the area. And we've asked for positive responses only, and any dash cam that's come back in, which there has been an amount of, we have reviewed. Some of it doesn't show anything, some is still being reviewed. But at the minute, there is absolutely no sightings of Nicola on there.
So bear in mind when you listen to that piece there from the senior investigating officer in charge, Rebecca Smith, that this is around about 4 days before the body of Nicola Bulley was discovered. We're weeks into the search effort at this stage, and yet there is no CCTV, no dashcam footage, no Ring doorbell footage, nothing at all evidentially speaking to capture Nicola Bulley on her walk from the school location towards the Iron Bridge and the towpath. Nothing whatsoever. So it should be very clear in your mind at this stage what they have. Yet this is not, in my opinion, how it is portrayed in the press conferences which took place in the first couple of weeks of her disappearance. We're told that they have a rich amount of information, quite a lot of information, hundreds of hours of CCTV footage which has been checked, which has allowed us to build up a really rich picture of Nicola's last known movements. But realistically here, we could just be looking at one eyewitness. Take a listen to the following.
At the same time, a dedicated team of investigators who often assist missing people inquiries has been working on this tirelessly. They have undertaken extensive house-to-house inquiries. They've checked numerous CCTV, dash cam and ring doorbell footage. They've traced and now spoken to a number of key witnesses. They have spoken to people in the community who have information about Nicola's lifestyle, her daily walks and so on. All this has built up a really rich picture of data that's allowed us to have a very tight timeline, some details of which we've already released, about Nicola's last whereabouts and what she was doing last Friday morning. I'm just going to reiterate for those who may not have caught some of the earlier detail, some of the key elements of this case that may jog somebody's memory if they were about on Friday morning, the 27th of January. We know that Nicola was last seen on the upper field next to the River Wyre here in St Michael's at 9:10. She had taken her spaniel Willow out for a walk, and CCTV that we've looked at shows that Nicola did not leave either the allotment lane exit of that riverside area, nor the Rowan Water Caravan Park, which has been discounted, nor any of the other locked or areas covered by CCTV. As I said Friday, this only leaves the path along Garstang Lane onto the A586, which is not covered by CCTV, but the more of those 700 or so vehicle drivers that we can identify and who can confirm that they have neither dashcam footage or saw anything on that morning will help us to close that very small gap. We can say with confidence, therefore, that we believe Nicola remained in the riverside area.
Now, my biggest issue with these press conferences, and this was my biggest issue at the time of Nicola's disappearance, is this constant discussion and constant talk of Nicola hasn't left the riverside area. We haven't got CCTV of Nicola leaving the riverside area. Therefore, we can say with confidence that Nicola hasn't left the riverside area. I mean, why even mention that you don't have CCTV of her leaving the area? The whole point is that you don't have CCTV at all. The fact that you don't have her leaving the area is kind of irrelevant because you don't have CCTV of her starting the walk, during the walk, or at the end of the walk. So then that made me naturally suspicious. I thought, well, why do they keep saying this? It's almost giving the impression that, okay, we've got CCTV coverage in certain places, but we don't see her leaving. Therefore, that's why we believe she's in the river. That's the impression I got during the search for Nicola. Not so much afterwards, but during the time when this woman was missing. It was a concern for me. The fact of the matter is that they had no CCTV. And it made me wonder why they kept phrasing it like they had something, but they didn't have her leaving. The fact is, as I've said, they didn't have CCTV whatsoever. Yes, they talk about we've got CCTV at Rowan Water and other little pointers on that walk, on that circular route that she would take, but they would only be relevant if she used those exits, which she has never used previously. Nicola would always do the same route. You can look at her Strava account, and it would always start round about the school, walking up the main road, walking up that road there to the Iron Bridge, up the towpath, along the lower field, around the upper field, in a loop, back to where she started. This is the key point. Where she finishes the walk is where she starts the walk. She comes off the main road, up the towpath, around the field, back down the towpath, back onto the main road, back towards her car. All in a circular loop, every single time. So to mention that we've got CCTV coverage in these places and locked off, all the other exits are either locked off or then, they're irrelevant. And really the only place we haven't got CCTV is the towpath back onto Garstang Road. That is the only place that ever mattered in this case, was that you didn't have CCTV at the start or end of Nicola's normal walking route. Now what I'm going to play for you now are some very short clips which will give you an understanding of how the eyewitnesses changed in this case. It starts off very early on with the last known sighting being on the towpath, an individual seeing Nicola on the towpath. This then changes to the introduction of an individual on the lower field and also the introduction of someone on the upper field. But then the first two eyewitness accounts, the one on the towpath and the one on the lower field, seemingly vanish from the last two press conferences and also the official statement put out by Lancashire Police.
I'm here today to appeal for witnesses in the case of Nicola Bulley. This is a 45-year-old lady from the local area who sadly went missing last Friday morning at about 9:15 a.m. She was last seen walking her small brown dog on the towpath of the River Wyre. So at 8:43 last Friday, Nicola was seen on the river path walking towards the Iron Bridge. A few minutes later at 8:47, she was seen in the lower field with her dog Willow and her mobile phone, which was on view. At 8:53, she sent an email to her boss on her phone, and at 9:01, she joined a Teams work call. All of this was normal behaviour for Nicola. This was not out of the ordinary, and nothing different or unusual happened during those calls and emails. At 9:10, she was seen in the upper field. The dog was off the lead. Again, this was normal. The dog was not in its harness and the lead wasn't on the dog, which was all part of Nicola's daily routine. I'm just going to reiterate for those who may not have caught some of the earlier detail, some of the key elements of this case that may jog somebody's memory if they were about on Friday morning, the 27th of January. We know that Nicola was last seen on the upper field next to the River Wyre here in St Michael's at 9:10. She had taken her spaniel Willow out for a walk, and CCTV that we've looked at shows that Nicola did not leave either the allotment lane exit of that riverside area, nor the Rowan Water Caravan Park, which has been discounted, nor any of the other locked or areas covered by CCTV. As I said Friday, this only leaves the path along Garstang Lane onto the A586, which is not covered by CCTV, but the more of those 700 or so vehicle drivers that we can identify and who can confirm that they have neither dashcam footage or saw anything on that morning, will help us to close that very small gap. We can say with confidence, therefore, that we believe Nicola remained in the riverside area.
In terms of the actual timeline, Nicola Bulley dropped her children off at school at about 8:40 on Friday the 27th of January. That was normal, and she then proceeded, after chatting to a couple of people in the school yard, walked up Garstang Road and onto the river path over an iron bridge that takes you down to these fields. We know that because there are witnesses who have identified her, and also from her phone data. We know that Nicola entered the field and made a couple of messages on her mobile phone, one to her boss and one to a friend, making arrangements for a play date for her children. And at 9:01, we know she logged into a work call on Teams. Again, there has been lots of speculation about this. This was a perfectly normal call for Nicola to have. It was work-related. She would never have had the microphone or camera on because it was more of an informative session. She didn't need to sign into it. She did so to enable her with her business. So I know there have been inquiries as to whether anybody else on the Teams call would have been able to hear or provide us with any information. I can assure you from the outset that was investigated thoroughly, and that is not the case. We know at this time that there were a number of dog walkers in the area, and we've been extremely fortunate from the very start of this inquiry to have a number of witnesses, key witnesses, who know Nicola. So there is no miscommunication about the identification of who is in that field.
Okay, now my issue regarding the eyewitnesses is not so much that further people are coming forward and new individuals have been identified and maybe the timeline changes slightly. I mean, naturally, as an investigation progresses, you are going to find new information and those timelines may be altered. But my biggest concern here is that we appear to be losing eyewitnesses. We've had someone on the towpath who claims to have seen her last. Then we have the towpath, we've got someone on the lower field and on the upper field. Yet now the individual on the lower field seems to have vanished. From the last two press conferences, the lower field individual isn't mentioned once. Combine that with the official statement put out by Lancashire Police, which again does not mention the lower field witness, actually means we're looking potentially here at one person. The 9:10 a.m. eyewitness account from the upper field. Are we really relying here on an individual who saw Nicola from a distance, who didn't come forward until around about a week after her disappearance? Now, it's okay for Rebecca Smith to kind of portray this idea that there's no confusion here, with a very angry face, may I add. There's no confusion here as to who was in the field that day, because this individual knows Nicola. My problem with that is if this individual knew Nicola, as you claim, on some kind of personal level, whatever, then why did it take them multiple days to come forward and say, oh, yeah, hang on a minute, yeah, I saw Nicola that day. Well, about 9:10, I think it was. What I believe has happened here is that this individual has seen a lady walking a dog, possibly with blonde hair, and then he said, actually, yeah, I think it's Nicola, or I recognise that dog, I recognise that lady who was walking that dog. Yeah, sometimes I often see her partner walking the dog. There's no personal connection here. I don't even know why they mention that. This person knows Nicola. No, they don't. If they knew Nicola, they would have been to that police station within the first 24 hours of her disappearance. They had a meeting at the village hall 2 days after she went missing. It's a small, tight-knit community, yet we're supposed to believe that someone who knew Nicola didn't come forward until days and days after she disappeared to say that actually, yeah, I saw her that day. I just don't buy into that. I really do not buy into that. So to summarise, my problem here is, are we looking at one individual who claims to have seen Nicola on January the 27th walking her dog? How can we explain the lack of dashcam footage? I mean, Rebecca Smith admits it freely here. We've appealed, we've written to 700 drivers who pass that area. Not one of them has dashcam footage of Nicola walking down that road towards the Iron Bridge. 700 vehicles. Really? I mean, you can see in front of you here how busy that road actually is. I mean, what do you find more likely? The fact that all of those cars would have passed that area and not captured Nicola once, or maybe, just maybe, the man in that field is mistaken. Did he really see Nicola Bulley on January the 27th? And what has happened to the lower field witness? Leave your thoughts and theories down in the comment section below. I must give a quick shout out to Sunny from the YouTube channel It's a Criming Shame. She provided me with this information regarding the official statement put out by Lancashire Police. I'll put a link to her channel down in the description box below. Please check that out. And as always, many thanks for joining me for this particular video. I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.